In this video, we will be discussing about what interest is. There are mainly two types of interest, simple interest and compound interest. But in this topic, we will focus on simple interest. There are a few learning objectives for us today. First is to understand what is simple interest, how to calculate simple amount, 4 basic concepts, understand what is present value, using the equation of value to solve investment and loan problems. So let's get started. First, what is simple interest? First definition is, interest is the money earned, basically your returns when money is invested. Let me give you an example here. You deposited 1,000 ringgit in a bank for a year, and you find that at the end of the year, you have 1,050 ringgit in your account. The additional amount of 50 ringgit is the interest you earned when you invested 1,000 ringgit. Now, the second definition, interest is the charge incurred when a loan or credit is obtained. Another example here for this definition, you borrow 1,000 ringgit from that same bank for a year, and you paid back 1,080 ringgit at the end of that year. The additional amount, which is 80 ringgit, is the charge or interest fee you need to pay when you borrow 1,000 ringgit from that bank. So, interest is not just something that you receive or something that rewards you, it's also something that could cost you money. Next, the simple interest formula. It is calculated on the original principal for the entire period it is borrowed or invested. So something to take note of here is whenever we talk about simple interest, we always talk about the original principal, not the accumulated funds that you have in your account. The product of the principal multiplied by the rate and also the time is what gives you the simple interest that you have earned. So based on the formula I equals to PRT, that gives us I equals to principal times your simple interest rate times the number of years in that term that you're talking about, whether it's a savings, whether it's a loan and whatnot. An example here to help us understand further. 1,000 ringgit is invested for 2 years in the bank, earning a simple interest rate of 8% per annum. How much is the simple interest earned? So the solution here is I equals to PRT, P, which is 1,000 ringgit, times 0.08, which is your interest rate, times 2, which is the number of years that you have left your money for in the bank, and that gives us 160 ringgit. So 160 ringgit is the simple interest earned. Again, to repeat and reinstate my point, there's a note here. When calculating the interest for the second year, we do not use 1,080 ringgit. Instead, the principal is always the original amount. So regardless of the number of years, 1,000 ringgit will always represent P, which is the principal amount. Next, the simple amount formula. So what is simple amount? The simple amount is the sum of the original principal and the interest that you have earned. So we've already found out how to calculate interest, which is PRT. Now when we just add PRT with P, which is already part of the formula, we get the simple amount. So yes, it is as simple as that. Let's look at an example here. Second example. RM with 10,000 ringgit is invested for 5 years in the bank, earning a simple interest rate of 9% per annum. Find the simple amount at the end of the investment period. Solution, S equals to P plus PRT, pretty straightforward. 10,000 ringgit plus here, what's in the bracket will give us 4,500 ringgit, and that gives us 14,500 ringgit. So you put 10,000 ringgit in the bank for 5 years. This is a really good interest rate. You get 14,500 ringgit in your bank account at the end of the investment period, and that is your simple amount. So you have made money from the savings. Next, pretty much a little bit of theory here that we got to go through. 4 basic concepts. Exact time, it is the exact number of days between 2 given dates. Approximate time, it assumes a month has 30 days in the calculation of number of days between 2 given dates. Ordinary simple interest. In calculating ordinary simple interest, we use a 360-day year. exact simple interest, this uses a 365 or 366 day year for interest computation. And next we have the present value. So basically, what is present value? Based on the name itself, present, it is the value of what you receive in the future in today's money. And the definition, the value in today's money of a sum of money to be received in the future. So the formula here is S equals to P plus PRT, which we have already discussed earlier. That is a simple amount. Now all we got to do is we want to leave P on one side. And to leave P on one side, we got to bring this 1 plus RT over to the left hand side. And that gives us P equals to S over 1 plus RT. And now we want to bring this all up with no fractions. P equals to S multiplied in bracket 1 plus RT to the power of negative 1. So let's look at an example on how we can use present value. Find the present value at 8% simple interest of a debt of 3,000 ringgit due in 10 months. So we want to know how much money we have borrowed in order to pay a debt of 3,000 ringgit that's due in 10 months. So we put in the formula and we follow what we have used. P equals to S to the power of 1 plus RT, power of negative 1. 3,000 ringgit in bracket 1 plus 0.08, that is your interest, simple interest rate, times 10 over 12 because you are only borrowing money for 10 months, and that is to the power of negative 1, gives us 2,812 ringgit and 50 cents. So we borrowed 2,812 ringgit 50 cents. The interest rate is 8%. In 10 months, we end up paying 3,000 ringgit. And that is the future value of your debt, and you want to know how much you have borrowed today. So that is how you can use present value. Next, we're going to talk about equation of value here. Okay, so now you may wonder, it's going to be a bit long. What is the importance of equation of value? So, equation of value means you have two equations and you're going to see how that can benefit us. You're going to combine and solve two problems with one solution. So isn't that a bonus for us? You get to kill two birds with one stone. See, every value of money has an attached date, the date on which it is due. The principle of dated values is one of the most important concepts in financial mathematics. An equation that states the equivalence of two sets of dated values at a stated date is called an equation of value or equivalence. So basically, you solve two problems with one solution. The stated date is called the focal date, the comparison date, or the valuation date. So first, to set up and solve an equation of value, the following steps should be done. First, draw a time diagram with all the dated values. Select the focal date. Put all the dated values to the focal date using the stated interest rate. And fourth, set up the equation of value and then solve. So it seems a bit lengthy here, but when you do it, it's actually very manageable. Let me show you an example and see how we can solve this together. Example 5. A debt of 800 ringgit due in 4 months and another debt 1000 ringgit due in 9 months are to be settled by one single payment at the end of 6 months. Find the amount of this payment using the present, which is basically now, as the focal date, assuming money is worth 6% per annum simple interest. So you borrow money and that is 6% per annum interest rate. So this is what I meant by solving two problems with one solution. You have an 800 ringgit debt and you have a 1000 ringgit debt. They are both due in different months and you need to do a single payment to solve both those debts. So let's see how we can work that out based on these steps here, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and how we can solve this problem. So first, draw a time diagram. We have already drawn the time diagram here. Select the focal date. We have already selected the focal date, which is now, hence month 0. And put all the dated values to the focal date using the stated interest rate. So we already know here, in 4 months, 800 ringgit is due. In 9 months, 1000 ringgit is due. And we know that the interest rate that we are using here, in this example, is 6% per annum simple interest rate. And lastly, set up the equation of value and then solve. So now once we have drawn the time diagram, let's look at the equations of value here. So let the single payment at the end of 6 months be RMX, which is what we have done here. At the end of 6 months, we don't know, which is what we want to find out. What is that amount of money we are going to pay to solve first debt and to solve second debt over here? So amount of the 800 debt at the focal date, 800 ringgit in bracket 1 plus 0.06, that's our interest rate, times 4/12, because that is due in 4 months to the power of -1, we get here 784.31. So that is the amount of the 800 debt at the focal date. Next, we want to look at our second debt. 1000 ringgit at the focal date, 1000 ringgit is due in 9 months, so all we got to do is change 9/12, same interest rate 0.06, and we get 956 ringgit and 94 cents is what's due at the focal date. Now, to sort out both these two debts, which is 784 ringgit 31 cents and 956 ringgit 94 cents, we want to make one payment at the end of 6 months. So this is how we do it. Amount of single payment X at the focal date equals to X1 plus 0.06, same interest rate, times, we change now 6/12, because 6 is the month that we're going to pay. The sixth month is when we're going to make our single payment to the power of -1, and that is equals to RM 0.97087X. So we know that with 0.97087X, this is going to be equals to 784.31 plus 956.94, as these two values are the money that we have borrowed and this is the payment that we are going to make, hence it has to be equal. So now all we got to do is put these two equations, which is what equation of value means, on the left and on the right, same value but you have an unknown to solve, and we leave that unknown as X, which is our single payment value. So with this equation here, we take 784.31 plus 956.94 divided by 0.97087, we get X equals to 1,793 ringgit and 49 cents, and that is the sum of the single payment to settle two debts at the end of 6 months. And that is how you can use equation of value to solve your problems and your loan understanding when it comes to business mathematics and how to use these concepts. It can be very useful at times when you have multiple debts to take care of and you're only going to make 1 or 2 payments. So learning outcomes, what have we learned so far? We have learned about simple interest, which is just basically your interest rate, simple amount, basically your principal plus the amount of interest that you have earned. We have learned about the 4 basic concepts. We have learned about present value, and lastly, equation of value. So with a little bit of practice, a little bit more problem solving, you'll understand this in no time and you'll get the hang of it. Thank you very much for tuning in with us in this video about simple interest and the other topics that we have discussed today. If you have any clarifications, anything that you want to discuss, if you have any questions, feel free to raise it up and comment in the section below, and we will try to discuss and address them accordingly. We hope to bring back more content and also discuss more topics about other key business mathematics topics in the future. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this video and see you again soon.